Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. I never thought I'd end up in a legal battle with my neighbor over something as basic as property boundaries, but here we are. This whole mess started about 2 years ago when Derek Mitchell moved into the property adjacent to my family farm in rural Minnesota. I'm a third-generation farmer. My grandfather bought this 200-acre property back in 1945 after returning from World War II, and we've been growing corn, soybeans, and raising some cattle here ever since. The property next door had always belonged to the Anderson family. Great folks who understood and respected farming life. But when old Bill Anderson passed away, his kids sold the property to Derek, a guy from Minneapolis who thought he'd try his hand at country living. From day one, Derek made it clear he had no idea how things worked out here. He'd never lived next to a working farm before, and it showed. The first time we met was when he came storming over to my house, complaining about the noise from my combine at 6 a.m. during harvest season. "Do you have any idea how early that is?" he demanded, still wearing what looked like designer pajamas. "People are trying to sleep." I tried to be patient. "Welcome to farm country, Derek. We work with the weather and daylight here. When it's harvest time, we need to get the crops in before rain hits. That's just how it is." He didn't like that answer, but there wasn't much he could do about it. What really started our problems, though, was his constant shortcuts across my property. See, Derek's house sat on a 10-acre lot that bordered the main road, while my farmland wrapped around his property in an L shape. He decided that instead of driving around to get to the lake on the other side of my property, he'd just cut straight across my fields. The first time I caught him doing it, I was checking the irrigation system and saw his bright red Tesla cruising right through my newly planted cornfield. I flagged him down immediately. "Hey, you can't drive through here. This is private property, and you're damaging my crops." Derek rolled down his window, looking annoyed. "It's just a little shortcut. What's the big deal? That public lake access is 3 miles around by road, but it's only half a mile cutting through here." "The big deal is that you're destroying crops I need to make a living," I explained, trying to keep my cool. "Each pass you make through here kills dozens of plants. Plus, it's dangerous. We've got irrigation equipment, drainage ditches, and farm machinery out here. Please use the road." He mumbled something under his breath and drove off, but I knew this wouldn't be the end of it. Sure enough, over the next few months, I kept finding tire tracks through my fields. Sometimes it was his Tesla, sometimes his wife's Range Rover, and occasionally their teenage kids on ATVs. I put up "No trespassing" signs. He ignored them. I installed a simple gate across the main path he was using. Someone, I wonder who, cut the chain. I reported it to the local sheriff, but they could only do so much without catching him in the act. What really got me worried was the liability issue. My insurance agent warned me that if someone got hurt while trespassing on my property, they could potentially sue me. That's when I decided to get serious about security. I invested in a comprehensive camera system with motion sensors and installed them at key points around the property. I also put in some heavy-duty gates with proper locks and clear warning signs every 50 feet along the property line. Total cost was around $15,000, but I figured it was worth it to protect myself. The cameras started capturing everything: Derek and his family crossing my property at all hours, sometimes with guests in tow like they were running their own private shortcut service. I documented every incident, sending certified letters to Derek demanding he stop trespassing and keeping copies of everything for my records. Then came the incident that would eventually land us in court. One October evening, my security system alerted me to movement near the north field. The sun had already set, and it was getting dark. I checked the camera feed on my phone and saw Derek's Tesla trying to navigate between two of my irrigation pivots. We'd had heavy rain the previous week, and that section of the field was particularly muddy. I actually found myself saying out loud, "Don't do it, you idiot," as I watched him try to maneuver through the field. Sure enough, his fancy car got stuck in the mud. The camera caught him getting out, designer shoes sinking into the muck, and then attempting to push his car free. That's when he slipped and fell right into one of the drainage ditches I'd warned him about. The motion sensors triggered the security lights I'd installed, and the cameras caught everything in crystal clear detail. Derek was cursing up a storm, covered in mud, and clearly hurting. I could have ignored it, but despite everything, I'm not that kind of person. I threw on my boots and jacket and drove my pickup out there. When I arrived, Derek was sitting on the ground, holding his ankle and shivering. "Are you okay?" I asked, keeping my distance, and making sure my body camera was recording. I'd learned to be careful with him. "Do I look okay?" he snapped. "I think my ankle's broken, and my car's stuck in this godforsaken mud pit you call a farm." I took a deep breath. "Derek, you're trespassing on clearly marked private property. ignoring multiple warning signs, and driving through an active farming operation after dark. Would you like me to call an ambulance? What I'd like is for you to pull my car out and then we can discuss removing all these ridiculous obstacles you've put up just to make my life difficult. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling an ambulance. You need medical attention, and we need a proper record of this incident. While waiting for the ambulance, I stayed nearby but refused to help him move or touch his car. Years of dealing with liability issues had taught me better than that. The EMTs arrived about 20 minutes later, followed by the sheriff's deputy I'd gotten to know pretty well over the past year. Deputy Johnson took one look at the scene and sighed. "Mr. Mitchell, we've had this conversation before about trespassing." "I'll sue," Derek suddenly shouted. "This is negligence. Having dangerous ditches without proper marking, setting up traps for innocent people just trying to get to the lake." I couldn't help but laugh. "Deputy, could you please note in your report that Mr. Mitchell drove past 4 no trespassing signs, broke through a locked gate, and ignored multiple warning signs about agricultural hazards before ending up here?" The next few weeks were interesting. Derek's ankle was indeed broken, and he needed surgery. True to his word, he filed a lawsuit against me for $250,000, claiming negligence, unsafe conditions, and some bizarre accusation about me deliberately creating hazards to hurt trespassers. What he didn't know was that I'd been preparing for something like this for months. I hired Amanda Chen, a lawyer who specializes in agricultural property law. When we met to discuss the case, she actually smiled while reviewing my documentation. "Mr. Thompson," she said, scanning through my organized files, "I wish all my clients were this thorough. You've got dated photographs of every sign installation, recordings of every trespassing incident, copies of all communication with Mr. Mitchell, and clear security footage of the incident itself. This isn't just a solid defense, we're going to file a countersuit." The day of the court hearing was surreal. Derek showed up with some hotshot lawyer from Minneapolis, wearing an expensive suit and walking with a slight limp. I wore my best flannel shirt and clean work boots, no point pretending to be something I'm not. His lawyer presented their case first, painting me as a malicious farmer who set up dangerous conditions to hurt innocent people just trying to enjoy the lake. They had photos of Derek's injuries, medical bills, and even a property value expert claiming my security measures had decreased their home's value. Then it was our turn. Amanda started by presenting a comprehensive timeline, showing the court every single documented trespassing incident over the past 2 years. She had organized everything into a clear, devastating presentation that showed Derek's repeated disregard for property rights and safety. "Your Honor," Amanda said, "I'd like to play a compilation of security footage showing Mr. Mitchell's repeated trespassing incidents." The footage was damning. Multiple clips showed Derek and his family driving through clearly marked private property, sometimes even moving barriers out of the way. There was footage of them tearing down signs, cutting chains on gates, and even one particularly interesting clip of Derek telling his guests, "Don't worry about the signs, I have an agreement with the farmer." That last one made me grip my chair. It was an outright lie, and now we had proof. But the real knockout came when Amanda presented the financial damages to my farm. Our agricultural expert testified about the cost of damaged crops, soil compaction from unauthorized vehicles, and the impact on my irrigation systems. The total came to over $47,000 in direct damages over 2 years. Derek's lawyer tried to argue that there was an implied easement due to historical use of the path to the lake. That's when Amanda pulled out the property surveys going back to my grandfather's time, showing no such easement had ever existed. The judge, an older woman who came from a farming family herself, asked Derek directly, "Mr. Mitchell, did you at any point seek permission for Mr. Thompson to cross his property?" Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Well, no, but..." "And were you aware that you were crossing private property?" "The signs were there, but I didn't think it was a big deal. Everyone around here knows that's the way to the lake." The judge's expression hardened. "Mr. Mitchell, I've reviewed the evidence thoroughly. Not only were you aware you were trespassing, but you deliberately damaged property and encouraged others to do the same. The night of your injury, you broke through a locked gate, ignored multiple warning signs, and drove through an active agricultural operation after dark. Your actions show a complete disregard for both the law and basic property rights." She turned to review some papers before continuing. "I am dismissing your lawsuit against Mr. Thompson. Furthermore, I'm granting his countersuit for damages. You will pay $47,000 for crop and property damage, plus $15,000 for the security system Mr. Thompson was forced to install due to your actions. I'm also issuing a permanent injunction. If you are found trespassing on Mr. Thompson's property again, you will face significant fines and possible jail time." Derek's face went from red to purple. His lawyer immediately started whispering about appeals, but I could tell from Derek's expression that the fight had gone out of him. After court, My lawyer handed me a thick envelope. These are the official documents. Post copies of the injunction at your property boundaries. If he or his family trespasses again, call the sheriff immediately. I nodded, feeling relieved but also a bit sad that it had come to this. As I was walking to my truck, Derek's wife Sarah approached me. I tensed up, expecting more drama, but her expression was different. "Mr. Thompson," she said quietly, "I want to apologize. Derek can be stubborn. We should have respected your property rights from the beginning. I've been telling him for months to stop, but he wouldn't listen." I appreciated her honesty. "Thank you, Sarah. I never wanted it to come to this. I'm just trying to protect my livelihood." She nodded. "I understand. We'll take the long way to the lake from now on." The drive home that day felt different. The setting sun was painting the cornfields gold, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could fully relax on my own property. My phone buzzed. It was my daughter Lisa, who's away at college studying agricultural science. "Hey Dad, how did it go?" I couldn't help but smile. "We won, kiddo. Completely. Yes," she cheered. "Does this mean I don't have to help you check for trespassers when I'm home for Christmas break?" "Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves," I laughed. "But at least now we have some real consequences if they try anything." The aftermath was interesting. Derek's family still lives next door, but things have changed. The first few months after the court ruling were tense but quiet. Derek avoided eye contact whenever we passed each other on the main road, and I noticed his Tesla always took the long way around to the lake now. His teenage kids stopped their ATV adventures across my fields, though I occasionally caught them giving me dirty looks when I was working near their property line. What really surprised me was how the situation affected the broader community. Word gets around fast in small farming communities, and this case had become something of a local legend. Other farmers in the area started reaching out to me for advice about their own property security measures. One Saturday morning, while I was doing maintenance on my combine, my neighbor from 2 properties over, Jim Baker, stopped by. "Hey Tom," he called out, walking up to my workshop. "Got a minute?" "Sure, Jim. What's on your mind?" He leaned against my workbench. "Been having similar problems with some of these city folks who bought the old Peterson place. They keep letting their dogs run through my cattle pasture, spooking the herd. Heard you got a good security setup." I wiped my hands on a rag and pulled out my phone to show him the camera system. "It's not cheap, but it's worth every penny. I can send you my supplier's information." As we talked, I noticed Derek's Range Rover pull into his driveway. Sarah got out, followed by what looked like a real estate agent. They walked around their property for about an hour. A week later, I found out they'd listed their house for sale. Part of me felt guilty, but another part remembered all the damaged crops, the constant violations of my property rights, and that ridiculous lawsuit. Actions have consequences, after all. The real estate listing described their property as a charming country estate with lake access via scenic drive. At least they were being honest about the lake access now. One evening, while I was reviewing some soil testing data in my office, my security system pinged. I checked the camera feed, expecting to see some wildlife, but instead, I saw Derek standing near one of my property markers. He wasn't trespassing, just standing on his side of the line, looking out over my fields. After a few minutes, he turned and walked back to his house. The next morning, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a check for the full amount ordered by the court, along with a brief note. "Mr. Thompson, we're moving back to Minneapolis. The country life wasn't what we expected. The check covers all damages as per the court order. I apologize for the trouble I've caused. Derek Mitchell." I deposited the check immediately, half expecting it to bounce, but it cleared without issue. 2 weeks later, a moving truck showed up at their house. I was working in the field nearby when Sarah walked over to my tractor. "We found buyers," she said, shielding her eyes from the sun. "A retired couple from Wisconsin. They used to own a dairy farm, so they understand agricultural life." I nodded. "That's good to hear. Listen," she continued, "I know Derek would never admit this, but he was wrong. We both were. We moved out here thinking we could live some kind of pastoral fantasy without understanding what real farm life means. The work, the early mornings, the responsibility. We weren't ready for any of it." I turned off the tractor engine. "I appreciate you saying that, Sarah. I never wanted to be at odds with my neighbors. This land, it's not just property to me, it's my family's legacy and my livelihood." She smiled sadly. "I understand that now. The new owners, the Petersons, they seem like good people. They actually asked about proper etiquette for living next to a working farm." After they moved out, things settled back into a peaceful routine. The Petersons proved to be excellent neighbors, even helping me out during harvest season when one of my farmhands called in sick. They always used the proper road to the lake, and Mr. Peterson often shared stories about his old dairy farm over coffee. The security system stays active though. A lesson learned the hard way about protecting what's yours. Lisa jokes that I'm paranoid, but as I told her, it's not paranoia if it already happened once. Last week, I got an interesting call from my lawyer, Amanda. Apparently, Derek's trying to buy another rural property about 50 miles away. The owner's lawyer had contacted her after running a background check and finding our case. They wanted to know the full story, Amanda explained. I sent them the court documents. They're adding some very specific language about property boundaries and trespassing to the purchase agreement. I couldn't help but chuckle. Maybe he learned something after all. Looking back now, the whole situation seems almost surreal. A simple property dispute that escalated into security systems, lawsuits, and eventually forced someone to completely change their life plans. But it also taught me some valuable lessons about standing your ground, documenting everything, and the importance of clear boundaries, both literal and figurative. The security cameras still ping me regularly, but now it's usually just to show deer crossing the fields at dawn or the occasional fox hunting mice in the corn rows. The new gates still stand strong, the no trespassing signs are clear as ever, and my crops grow undisturbed by unauthorized shortcuts. Sometimes, when I'm out checking the irrigation systems at sunset, I think about how different things could have been if Derek had just asked permission in the first place. We might have worked out a proper arrangement, maybe even become friends. But that's the thing about respect. It has to go both ways, and it has to be there from the start. As for me, I'm just happy to be back to focusing on what I do best, farming my land, just like my father and grandfather did before me. And now, thanks to all this, I've got some extra security to make sure it stays that way for generations to come. The end update. Update, 1 year later. A lot has happened since I last wrote about the trespassing situation with Derek Mitchell. I thought I'd share an update because things took some interesting turns that I didn't expect. About 6 months ago, I got another call from Amanda, my lawyer. Turns out Derek had gone through with buying that rural property I mentioned, but history has a way of repeating itself. He'd gotten into similar trouble with his new neighbors over property boundaries and access rights. You're not going to believe this, Amanda said, but his new neighbor's lawyer reached out to me. Derek tried the same shortcut scheme through their apple orchard to get to a state park. When they blocked access, he filed another lawsuit claiming implied easement rights. You're kidding, I replied. Did he learn nothing? Obviously not. But here's where it gets interesting. They want you to testify about your experience. The judge in their district knows about our case and specifically requested your testimony. I agreed immediately. I'm not usually one for court drama, but some people only learn the hard way. The hearing was set for last month, and I took a day off from spring planting to drive up there. Walking into that courtroom felt like déjà vu. Derek was there, looking exactly the same in another expensive suit, but his face dropped when he saw me. His new neighbors, the Jacobsons, turned out to be third-generation apple farmers who'd built their orchard from nothing. The similarities to my case were striking. Derek had been cutting through their orchard, damaging irrigation lines and young trees. When they installed security cameras and gates, he sued them for blocking historical access to the state park. When I took the stand, Derek's lawyer tried to paint me as having a grudge. Bad move. Mr. Thompson, he started, isn't it true that you have a history of hostile relations with my client? I looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, I had no relationship with Mr. Mitchell at all until he started trespassing on my farm, damaging my crops, and encouraging others to do the same. Then he sued me when he got hurt trespassing, lost the case, and was ordered to pay over $62,000 in damages, which he did pay in full before moving away. The judge leaned forward. And did Mr. Mitchell ever seek permission to cross your property? No, Your Honor. Just like with the Jacobsons, he assumed he had the right to cross private property because it was convenient for him. My testimony lasted about an hour. I presented copies of my security footage, court documents, and photographs of the damage Derek had caused to my farm. The Jacobsons' lawyer then showed eerily similar footage from their orchard. The judge didn't even need to deliberate. He dismissed Derek's lawsuit on the spot and issued another injunction, citing the pattern of behavior established by my case. But here's where it got really interesting. Mr. Mitchell, the judge said, this court takes a very dim view of individuals who repeatedly violate property rights and then attempt to use the legal system to justify their actions. I'm ordering you to pay the Jacobsons' legal fees in full, and I'm referring this case to the State Bar Association for review of possible frivolous litigation. Derek's face went white. His lawyer started shuffling papers nervously. After the hearing, Mrs. Jacobson hugged me. Thank you for coming. We were worried we'd have to sell the orchard if we lost. We can't afford lengthy legal battles. Nobody should have to sell their family farm because someone won't respect property rights, I told her. As I was leaving the courthouse, Derek tried to approach me, but his lawyer held him back. I heard later through Amanda that the State Bar Association opened an investigation into his lawyer for filing frivolous lawsuits. Back home, things have been peaceful. The Petersons, who bought Derek's old house, have become good friends. Mr. Peterson even helps me maintain the security system now. Turns out he used to work in IT before retiring from dairy farming. Lisa graduated from college last month with her degree in agricultural science. During her graduation dinner, she made an announcement that brought tears to my eyes. "Dad, I've decided to come back and help run the farm. Someone needs to keep an eye on those security cameras when you're too old to climb the grain bins." I laughed. "I'm not that old yet, kiddo." "Maybe not," she grinned, "but someone needs to modernize this place." And after everything that happened, I realized how important it is to protect what our family has built. The security system has more than paid for itself, not just in preventing trespassing but in other ways too. We caught some teenagers trying to steal fuel from our storage tanks last fall, and the cameras helped the sheriff's department solve a series of equipment thefts at other farms in the area. I still get calls from other farmers asking for advice about property security. I always tell them the same thing: document everything, invest in good security, and never back down when you're in the right. It's not about being confrontational, it's about protecting what's yours. Looking at the farm now, with the new spring crops coming up and Lisa planning improvements for the future, I know standing my ground was the right thing to do. Sometimes you have to fight to protect what matters, even if it means making some enemies along the way. The security cameras are still running, the gates are still locked, and the no trespassing signs still stand. But now they represent something more than just boundaries. They represent the determination to protect what 3 generations of my family have built, and what future generations will continue to build. And Derek? Last I heard, he's back in Minneapolis, living in a condo with no shortcuts to worry about. Sometimes the best lessons are the ones that hit your wallet twice. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.